Representative Erickson, thanks for joining us today.
Well, it's great to be here.
As chair of the House Education Innovation Policy Committee, would you consider the 2017 session a successful one in terms of education?
Oh, absolutely. 17 was very successful. We accomplished a teacher licensure reform from 40 years ago. We had not changed the organizational structure of licensing our teachers, and so in 2017 we accomplished something that we started working on in 2016. Spent about 1,000 hours. That's all staff, nonpartisan and partisan, and others who contributed. And by the time the governor signed the bill the last time, I think we'd made 50 revisions. So it was a very bipartisan effort, and it's going to give us, I think, a great future for teacher candidates in our state.
And can that momentum continue with education issues that you'd like to focus on during the upcoming session?
2018 is going to be a shorter session, so there has to be a more limited agenda. I think that teacher licensure will not necessarily be on the table because we want to see how that's going to work, so we won't revisit that, but we'll have other agenda items.
What are some of the things that you have on your agenda as we look forward to the 2018 session?
Well, I think some of the big issues that will come up in 2018 are the Every Student Succeeds Act, because the federal government is expected to approve or disapprove of the Minnesota plan in January of 18. Now, if they disapprove or ask for changes, which I think they're likely to do, because the grading so far of all the ESSA plans does not put Minnesota in a good position, the legislature is going to have to deal with some of that. And I think it's important that we refocus on career education, technical education, as the commissioner did not include that in part of the plan. And I know that that across the nation is very important, and it's very important to me. I also think that it's important that we revisit mandatory reporting. As recently we have learned of misbehaviors among teachers in our classrooms, and we want to make sure that the new board, PELSB, is reporting any discretionary or unjustified actions by teachers. We also want to let students know that whatever age they are, if they are enrolled in our public schools, they are not going to be having a relationship with their teacher on a basis other than teacher and student. And then licensing of teachers being rehired in our classrooms when they have felonies has to be re-examined as well. And I have tried for several years to make sure that records can be reopened when a felony has occurred, especially among our teaching communities. So that's important. And then teacher preparation. I just think that we need to look closely at moving our teacher preparation programs into the 21st century. Our teacher candidates are not coming into our classrooms well equipped enough to understand our standards, because we are standards-based, our testing, and the technology that goes along with keeping track of that data, so that they really know as teachers and can relate to parents and students the progress of their children.
And how hard is it to balance the educational needs of, say, Minneapolis and St. Paul schools with suburban schools and other districts?
Well, I really don't, as a chair, differentiate between Minneapolis, St. Paul, the suburbs, or rural Minnesota. I'm concerned about all of our students, and so I try not to separate those and make one more difficult than the other. I want to treat all fairly and make sure all have opportunities and the same standards by which to be educated.
And we've heard some people say in Minnesota there's a teacher shortage, especially for non-whites and in greater Minnesota. What can be done on a bipartisan basis to fix this?
Well, we think that the new licensure, the new board, and having one structure now, licensing and board decisions coming together under our new professional standards and licensing board, we think that's going to accomplish a lot, because it's going to pull in teachers from out of state or candidates from out of state, those who've been trained in other places. but it also is going to encourage districts like Minneapolis has already done this to form grow your own programs. And that means taking those who are presently on staff, maybe as paraprofessionals, and training them because they have bachelor's of arts degrees or bachelor's of science to become teachers in our classroom. And many of them are from our minority communities because those folks come to our schools to work so they can help their children progress. And that's a great way to try to close a critical status of teacher shortage. We also have provided some help financially in scholarships. We've also provided help for student teaching costs, especially among minority students. So I think altogether we've made some very important progress to allay the need for major legislation to close that teacher shortage.
You represent District 15A. What have you heard from constituents during the interim, and what would they like addressed during the 2018 session?
Well, parents are always concerned about their children's education. They want to know that their districts are doing the best they can and that we really allow local control. So I visit all my schools and all my school boards and visit with parents all the time, and they just want to make sure that the state just keeps its position for forming a framework for policy, but then let districts go on their own. So basically that's what I hear from parents. They do raise concerns, of course, about the rise in property taxes, but I have to remind them that those are decisions made at the voting booth and that they have a great say in that, and they have to make a decision as to whether or not they can afford that increase, if an increase is called for in their property taxes. But listen carefully to what the district is requesting and then make your own decision, because I'm not going to interfere in that.
And I have to ask you this before we end today. During your career as an English teacher, House Speaker Kurt Dowd was one of your students. What kind of student was he?
Well, Kurt Dowd was the same kind of student that he is Speaker. Affable, energetic, just loved by everybody, very diplomatic. Probably could have studied harder, but he was a very good student, and I enjoyed him a great deal. And I had his mother as one of my first students when I started teaching in Princeton in 1963-64. So I knew the family, and that I know his sister well, and I also had his brother, so a great family. And really, it's just an honor to have been a teacher of the Speaker.